Hello, welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. Today we're going to be doing a creator request, which is where a band gets in contact with me and says, hey, you want to check out our music? And I say, yeah, let's do it. That sounds fun. Today we got a band called Valcata. They're a symphonic progressive metal opera collective, which just sounds really cool. It says, hey, we're a symphonic opera project, just released a new single called Tower. We hope you can react, analyze the lyric video. I see there's a request spreadsheet, let us know. So they got in contact and said, do that. And I was like, okay. Now, here's the thing. This is how old this is, and I'm really sorry. I wish I could get to these faster. We have a new single called Tower. The single came out a year ago, February 12th, 2021. So I apologize getting this so late. There's a lot of bands who have got in contact with me, and I'm trying to get through them. I really am. So let's get into this. This is Valcata Tower. Yeah, I love how they create that space to allow the piano to shine a little bit there with its run. It's a nice little back and forth. Halftime in it. That high note is clean. Yeah, I got those vocal harmonies. A little change up in the rhythmic component to that melody. It's interesting how many melodic lines we've seen in the vocals already. Yeah, we took this opening idea with that opening space that the piano is filling. Yeah, and then we got the violin filling that space. Really nice. A great way to recontextualize an idea they've already created. Yeah, we've shifted chord progression there at the end too. The differing rhythmic components to the similar line. Yeah, it has a lot of really strong operatic elements to the vocal writing. very harsh transition. I think that's the first harsh one, which might work thematically. Yeah, and we've taken this idea and we put the vocalizations in the backgrounds. I was actually a little afraid it was over already. I really want to see where they take this idea. Yeah, and even here we're repeating a lot of the same lines, but the drum pattern is different, so it keeps just a fair bit lively. Little ornamentations like that, variations on ideas. Yeah, very cool. So there's a lot of this that I really enjoyed, even though this sort of symphonic metal typically isn't what I'm drawn to. We've listened to a few of them in the past, and I've shown appreciation for the craft, but most of it's kind of bounced off of me. This right here, though, I think works very well. It utilizes the symphonic elements in ways that incorporate melodic tones, in ways that incorporate more classical sort of chord progressions, which honestly only happened one time. A lot of this was still working within the typical metal sound, but it also decided to use what I think is its strongest suit, and I'm not sure if the rest of their songs are going to be like this, but linear musical writing. I don't know why that took so long to say. The song has very few repetitions in it, and when it does have repetitions, there are variations on what is happening in order to make sure that it's seen more as a an alteration of a section rather than a repetition of that section. And we saw that happen with the chorus, and we saw it happen with the intro element. It wasn't the entire intro, it was more of just the guitar and drums. The riffs that they were playing, the patterns they were playing, were utilized in a future section. So technically that's not a repetition, more of a callback, but at least to me, I felt it sort of 50-50. So I'm gonna, include that as a repeating element there. But I absolutely love how nothing really feels static in this track, and I think that that's its strongest aspect right there. Aside from just some of the fantastic melody writing, um, I want to get into um, yeah, the melody writers, primarily talking about the vocals. I think they had the strongest melodic presence. There were a couple of moments. We had the piano at the beginning. We had a violin duet, possibly. Not really a duet though. It's just two violins. um, Might have just been one violin, and then is doubled up in the digitally. Regardless, though, we had a violin playing melody at one point. We had a piano playing lead at one point. We had a couple of lead guitar riffs. They were cyclical, loop based, repeating, however you want to put that. So it wasn't a standard linear melody, but it was still present. But those are like, they were such a small amount of the melodic component. Most of it, I'd say 60-70% of it, easily a majority, was given to the vocals. And part of that, I think, is just that there's a lot of vocal strength here. Another thing I think is it ties into this operatic element. And I think this is really what I want to dig into here when I talk about this. is the way that the melody lines are created to support and oppose as both harmony and counterpoint is very operatic here. We see it in several situations in the second half of the track. The first half, we're mostly dealing with harmony. We get the male vocal, and then we get the male female vocal combined for 4 bars or so, and then leads into the female vocal. And they sort of go back and forth a couple of times. But where it really starts to split into more of an operatic style of melody writing is when we enter into the first harsh section. We get those growls. And then we get the growls with the female vocals and the way that they subtly oppose each other is very cool. We see this so rarely in popular music. And when I say popular music, I mean everything popular: metal, rock, uh, pop, country. It's just not something seen in mainstream elements too often. And of course, again, I use mainstream a little loosely here. In that classification, metal is a mainstream genre. Not a lot of people might enjoy it, but it's a big genre. It's one of the big five-ish, I would say. Um, and it's this idea of having two people sing the same thing with slight variation to uh, create not only just contrast in the music, which allows for a little bit of variation and keeps it interesting, but also to allow each of the vocalists to have their own personality, to inject their own unique take on this idea. And of course, that likens back to opera a little bit, where each character or each voice is a character in a story. I don't know if that's necessarily true here or if they're just using the different timbres uh, for their sound. They want this one to be heavier, so that's why we have growling, that kind of idea. But there was one part where the growler was doing everything on the beat. Everything was just very strict, very rigid. And then the female vocalist who was harmonizing with the growler was a little looser. She might have held like the third note just a hair over. So then the growler would have come in on the downbeat of 4, and then she would have hit that note on the offbeat of 4, just to get this little differentiation while she lets that third note breathe a little bit, which also helps because one person is growling, which is mostly a sonoristic style of uh, vocal delivery where it's more about the texture rather than about notes. And she has a melody line where she can allow different notes to have different presence and weight to the overall phrase. So that might be one reason why it happens, but the end result is that it feels very operatic. It feels like different people are embodying different characters or different personalities, and those personalities are being injected into the music. And that's not the only time this happens. We also see this in the final moment when we do the return to the chorus, and we have pretty much the chorus copy pasted here, except we have a second female vocalist in the back. Started off, I thought she was doing vocalizations, but in the second half of the chorus, I noticed she was actually singing the same thing everybody else was singing, just more theatrically, really drawing out some of these syllables, and sometimes starting before the main chorus, sometimes ending after the main chorus, just really taking those same words and melodies and adapting them into a completely different phrase. Um, you know, lengthening out some sections, shortening down other sections, and recontextualizing that melody line and those words themselves. And interestingly, not just doing it in isolation, but pairing it against the original template of this melody line. Very operatic. Absolutely love it. Normally when I see symphonic metal or opera metal and stuff like that, I really don't want to think this way, but I have, in the last 2 years doing this channel, have seen that it's more of a surface comparison. It's not necessarily symphonic metal, it's metal with strings doing the chords in the background. It's not operatic metal, it's metal that happens to have somebody who's operatically trained and sings with that operatic sort of whistle tone. Usually, I mean, it doesn't always have to be that way, but I think the most of the times I've seen it, it's a female vocalist who has a bit of a higher range, and she gets that super quick vibrato on it, and it evokes the style of opera. But we don't ever really see much of the musicality of symphonic music, classical music, or opera music. And I think these guys really get it. They're doing their best to find the balancing point between them, to sound metal while still introducing ideas of classical and opera into it. And it's a difficult rope to walk. It really is. Finding that point where it's going to be exactly what they want, but also palatable enough that it can become a career if that's what they want. They can be able to market it and have a large enough of a fan base that they can continue to make this, um, while also not veering too far into that marketability. They really want to have this sound where it is metal that's been influenced by classical and opera, not metal that happens to evoke the sound of classical and opera. And yeah, I'm not going to say it's an easy job to do that, as with mixing any genres. Where's the point where you've gone too far in one direction? Where's the point where you haven't gone far enough in a direction? No one can really tell you that. But at least for my tastes, what I look for when I hear about these genre bending combinations is stuff like this. I think it is a really nice middle ground between operatic writing and the metal sound and metal writing. And they do a really good job combining the two, primarily in their melody writing. Um, I do want to say I wish that the guitar solo melody and the violin solo melody, which might have been a violin duet, but they were playing the same thing, I wish they were more dynamic. They were both riff based. The guitar one in particular took a single line, it might have been a 1 bar or 2 bar phrase, and they just repeated it and repeated it. But every time they might, shift everything up a third. So there was overall movement to it, but it was repetitious and loop based. Still, the core intervals between the notes and the note lengths themselves, that was the loop, that was the foundation for everything that happened in that guitar solo. I would have liked to see more of a traditional linear guitar solo in that section. However, of course, that's just my opinion. If you really enjoy Valcata, if you really enjoy the guitar solo as you wrote it, or maybe if it ties into themes of ideas, maybe the song is about repetitions and loops that maybe change on the surface, but underneath for just repeating the same patterns kind of idea. 100% keep it in there. There's no reason to take my word as any sort of authority. I'm just giving my opinions here. And the same thing goes for that violin solo. I thought it was really well done. I thought it worked fantastic by bringing back that opening guitar and drum riff, but swapping out the piano for the violins and allowing the violins to shine in those little pockets of silence. Really great recontextualization of that intro riff. I just wish that the violins were doing something, again, a little more linear, especially when there's a lot of linearity in the song structure itself. There are, as I mentioned, very few sections that repeat, and when they do, we see a nice variation on them. So, yeah, I think that's really my only takeaway here. And the production is very clean. There's a lot going on in here, and everything is very clear, very prominent in its section of the sound sphere. It really comes together. I'm gonna have to be checking out more of Valcata. What is this? Do we know what album? There are a lot of people on here. We got a guitarist, a bassist, a drummer, a strings overall, just kind of strings, a synth person. Yeah, one, two, three, four, five. Oh, and three vocalists. So 8 people here, and they're all from other projects, which is interesting. I don't think I've heard of any of them, unfortunately, but definitely makes me want to check. Oh, Ocean Rise, actually, the drummer played in Ocean Rise. It looked like that's the only one I recognize. Am I thinking of Ocean Size? I I might not even know that one either. Yeah, it's a shame. This is fantastic. I absolutely. Oh, the The Mixer has mixed for Volbeat before. That name I recognize. That's a big name. They got a big production guy for this. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check more of this out, as well as possibly more of this other stuff, especially the vocalists. Like I said, they kind of stole the stage for me, and I definitely want to check out some of the rest of the stuff that they've done. All right, that wraps this one up for me. This is where you guys come in. Let me know what you thought of Valcata's Tower. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. If you're going to have to go check these guys out, they only have 500 subscribers on YouTube. If you enjoy this, go ahead, give them that subscribe. As usual, I put the link down in the description for the music video if you want to head over there and give them a like as well. Help out with the YouTube algorithm, all that stuff for them. When you're done commenting, description box, link tree takes you to this menu right here. All sorts of stuff in here. Patreon, special selection. If you're a band, you want to get in contact with me, there's an email button up top between YouTube and Bandcamp. Looks like a little envelope. Go ahead and email me with your band, your music, all that stuff, and we'll try to get you on here, and hopefully before another year. I do apologize. The list is getting quite lengthy. When you're done with the description box, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All right, that's it for this week. If you're in the Patreon at the critic level, you got a live stream looking for it on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll run for about 2 hours as usual. Otherwise, everyone else be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll be looking at a double week theme of covers. We're going to check out the original song and then a cover based on it. Hopefully, I'm really hoping these covers are more reimaginations, because otherwise I'm not going to have much to talk about other than how they rearranged it for a different set of instruments probably. I won't really be able to talk too much about the music, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Might be interesting. It's going to be 2 weeks. Like I said, one day we're going to look at, I'm rambling. Anyways, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.